Paris Chandler started an entire movement back in 2018 when she began by using a hashtag that she created called Black Tech Twitter. That led to a lot of significant changes in Paris's life, which I'll let her tell you about. But one of those would be becoming the CEO and founder of the Black Tech Pipeline. It's amazing sometimes the kind of things that can just be such a magnificent little change for people. Paris, my biggest joy about this particular one that I'm doing with you is that I have not met you beforehand and I have not spoken to you beforehand. And that, to me, I just find it even more interesting again, because I have so many things that I want to know and learn about you. And even reading what I can find about you on the internet is so inspirational. And I want to hear it from your perspective as such. I know we'll get into the Black Tech Pipeline and Black Tech Twitter, but let's start with where you began as such and how you ended up in tech to begin with. What drives it?
So before I got into tech, I was a wax specialist at European Wax Center. I don't know. Do you know what that is?
Like body waxing?
Yeah.
No way.
Waxing body hair. I actually loved it. I really loved having that as a career because I was an esthetician, but within aesthetics, I kind of moved into waxing.
Yeah.
I was really good at my job. I had a really good clientele. And so I waxed body hair full time. And I had one client in particular who was a software engineer. She came in and she was telling me about coding and what she does for work. And she was like, it's so easy to learn it. You should get into it. It pays so well. And I really wasn't interested in, because I was like,
very different, very different.
And I always promised myself I would never get into a career that, forced me to sit in front of a computer all day. Cause I'm one of those people who I have to move around,
Yeah.
And I ended up getting in because after that happened, I ended up going to an event at my little brother's school. And walking down the hallways of his school, there were signs about kids getting into STEM and learning to code and things like that. And I had talked to his principal and I asked, why are kids this age? Because it was middle school. I was like, why are kids this age being told to learn how to code? I feel like that's something college students would be doing or hearing about. And he was telling me how, the curriculum is changing and we're in a, digitally driven world. You don't want to be left behind. People can get replaced by machines. And what's funny is as a wax specialist, I really was losing clientele to laser hair removal, which is a machine that does permanently remove hair.
You were feeling it firsthand,
Yeah. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually sort of a victim of this, or I will be one day. And that's what really pushed me to get into tech. And so I learned to code through a boot camp and my career took off from there.
And I think it's still true. There's still a demand for software engineers. I know I've had a good few conversations recently with people. Some people will argue that there isn't and others will argue that there is. I would argue that there is. They're not all called software engineers anymore. They're getting new brands and new names that are leaning into the AI and the machine learning and all of that side of things. But, I'm not seeing any shortage of it in my neck of the woods anyway, that's for sure. And those skills are never going to be redundant. I learned HTML when I was 19 and that was not 5 minutes ago. But still a lot of it still relevant. I can still read all of the other languages. Can't necessarily write them all because I haven't learned how to, but I can still understand what people want to say. So it's a skill like riding a bike. The majority of it's still there and useful. And I think it always will be once we move forward with technology.
Yes, I definitely agree.
So then when you went into software engineering, what kind of things did you create first?
What was I building? I was building really simple landing pages. I'd build certain components of an application. I wasn't really leading any projects, just, contributing to them in whichever ways that I could. And it was mainly front end stuff. I think one of the coolest things I ever did that no one will ever see is I built the 404 page for a hospital here in Boston. So that was really cool.
But at least you hope no one ever sees that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
I love it. So you became well known because of the Black Tech Twitter tweet. Man, that's a hard one to say 10 times. Tell me a little bit more about how that came about.
Yeah. So it's funny because I did not intend to mobilize a community, but I got into Twitter, getting into tech. I'm based in Boston, and here in the corporate world, there just are not a lot of Black people, but especially like within tech, there are not a lot of Black people. And so, going from being a wax specialist where my colleagues were very diverse, right? And before that, I had jobs like I was a hostess, I was a waitress, and like, again, lots of diversity. Now I'm moving into this corporate space where there are Black people, but the amount was so little. And it was so strange to me because I was like, why is it was just strange. It's not something I had experienced before. And then on every tech team that I worked on, which I worked at 3 different companies in tech, there were no Black people on the team and there were no Black people in the company. I was the only one.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that came with so many different experiences, like lots of negative experiences. And when I got onto Twitter, I wanted to just see if there were other Black technologists on there because social media, public platform, you get exposure to other people in the world.
Yeah.
And so I posted my tweet asking, what does Black Twitter in tech look like? Because Black Twitter is like its own ecosystem on Twitter. But I posted that tweet and it ended up going viral and mobilizing the Black tech Twitter community, which again, I didn't intend for that to happen. I didn't even think I would really get any engagement because I was new to Twitter.
Yeah.
I didn't really know anyone. But it did take off and I'm really happy that it did.
I think that's wonderful. It's like a secret force as such behind it all. And then now that you'd identified this community that were in tech, what did you discover from your responses from those tweets? Like what was identified immediately? Were they all in the same boat as you, or was there some who were managing it or seeing the diversity and able to share their stories?
Yeah, I think everyone felt like, oh my gosh, there are a lot of us here. We just didn't know it because we're across the world, right? And a lot of us are within the US, but scattered across the US. And so it was nice to finally come together in one centralized place, but that's what it was. And then to me, what opened up was this has really been sort of like a network problem versus like this pipeline problem that companies love to talk about. We've always existed in this industry, but if you are not socializing with these sort of people, if you're not going out to meet them, just even naturally, you're not going to find them and you're not going to have exposure to them.
Absolutely. I've been approached many a time by people saying like, women aren't applying for our roles. Like there just isn't any out there. And I'm kind of going, no, that's not true.
Not true. Yeah.
So not true. Like either the role you're advertising is missing the point, like they might think it looks fine, but it's not. It's somehow excluding women from, or we're reading something that's not, that they're not seeing. Or what I tend to do as a woman who might be applying for roles, I'll always check out the company. I want to see if I'm there in any of their group pictures or in any of the things that they're involved in, if there's another person that looks like me there. And if there's not, then that tells me a lot about the company. I'll check out the socials and things like even Glassdoor, because people will post their own pictures to it as opposed to just company pictures. And like, I love the phrase pipeline. I don't love the phrase pipeline problem. I love that it's got a name for something, even though it's the wrong name, like the blame is all in the wrong place. And just to reflect the other side of the water, such like in Ireland, the first time I ever worked with somebody who was Black, he was an intern on my team, and it was maybe 3 years ago. And he was the second Black person working in that leg of the company, the Irish side of the company at the time, because I remember when I was showing him around, we had this rotating screen that was naming all the ERGs, and there was one for Black. And he said, oh, cool. Do I get to go? Like, is there social events? What are we going to do? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure you can have a social event. You'd want to call the other guy who's in Cork and we were in Dublin and see if he'll meet up for beers, because there's only the two of you at the time. And at that, we were still doing well. And same as you, I disagree that they don't exist. I just don't think that we were catching them. And I never had a problem catching them in my net as such. But then I talked about all of those things that I was involved in. But other leaders will have problems catching them in their net because their net is a lot smaller, or at least perceived to be smaller based on what they're talking about. So what kind of myths have you seen? Like, I feel like I've got 100 examples of how I've seen it here, and we're pretty diverse in our list, diverse the more outside of the cities that you go, which I think is pretty normal anyway. But when you've challenged that idea of the pipeline problem, do you have, like, what have you seen? What are the myths and realities?
Yeah. So number one is like what I already stated, it is a network problem. And I think that like realizing that it's a network problem, that should show you that that means you need to go and expand your network, and don't always expect it to come to you, because realistically, it's not going to. Like, what you're not looking for is likely not going to find you, if
No.
that makes sense.
Yes.
You have to get involved with different communities and be willing to meet new people and, do research and explore. And I feel like you should want to do that anyway. Like, you should want to have a diverse group of friends, a diverse network, right? Because that's reflective of the world that we live in. And you just get so much more exposure. You get educated better because you're learning from people who are living these experiences and are part of these cultures. Like, you're learning in those ways. And just staying in your bubble of comfort, it's really easy just to like remain really ignorant,
Yeah,
and closed-minded. And who wants that, right? So
exactly.
it's a lot of
Stunted
like
growth.
going
Like, yeah.
out, yeah, and doing the work.
And I think do you think it's gotten easier to do that since COVID to network? I know I used to hate network and hated, like, physically hated going to them and doing the whole, hi, I'm Jenny, I do this. Hi, I'm Jenny, I do that. Because that's how I perceived it to be. But then when COVID happened and I had more time, because I wasn't commuting and I could just network with people all over the world, which were way more interesting. No offense to my wonderful Irish colleagues, way more interesting because there was so much more to learn, not just about the technology, but about their culture and such too. Do you think it's helped in that way, and there's enough resources there to help get these people together?
I do. I do think there's a lot of resources in terms of like there's conferences. You can go to these different conferences that are literally they're centering these groups, and they're inviting everyone to join in to meet them and collaborate, right? Then you have these online communities. Online makes everything more accessible, right? So not only can you learn online, but you can join different groups, contribute to whatever they're doing, whatever it is. So there's that. There's social media. Then there's something like Black Tech Pipeline. We center Black technologists, and we can promote opportunities for Black technologists. But I'm not the only one doing that for Black technologists, nor are Black people the only ones doing that for their communities. You can find that all over through a simple Google search, like women in tech job boards, Latinx job board, whatever it is. You can find all of these things online. And that makes it so much easier. And then there's like looking locally, what's happening in your area, Googling those things, attending them. If you don't want to, again, stay online.
It all seems like so much of a no-brainer when you say it out loud, but I guess, like, even when I started in my career, I wouldn't have even known any of that. Now, there was the internet, but it wasn't as advanced. But I wouldn't. These days, it is, like you say, at your fingertips. Like, even learning LinkedIn and searching for the hashtags will bring you exactly to specific things that you're looking for, rather than trying to find individuals and keywords and such. But I think, yeah, it's important to know that. And then tell us a little bit more about the Black Tech Pipeline. So was that idea born from this tweet, or how did it come about?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So because my tweet had gone viral, it got a lot of attention from media outlets. And I think once the media outlets were talking about it and it just got a lot of traction, companies started just casually DMing me on Twitter. They're like, hey, we saw your tweet, we saw your community. Can you recruit for us? We want to diversify, we want to do better in that area. And like, mind you, my full-time job was being a software engineer. But I took on, these little side projects of recruiting for them for free for 2
Wow.
years. For 2 years, I was helping recruit different candidates into various different companies, both big and small. But I launched Black Tech Pipeline because throughout the 2 years, I got some feedback from some of the candidates that I recruited, and they let me know that some of these companies were performative. Like, although they hired them, they didn't intend to support them or, help them grow in their career. And so they ended up leaving those companies. And I felt really horrible about that because I never actually vetted any of these companies. I just agreed to recruit for them because I thought it'd be a good idea to help, diversify the industry with more Black people.
You're also doing like a full-time day job as well. Like, that's a lot of work to do the
I was
research,
like,
even as an individual looking for a job who's interested in finding that out. Like, that's a lot of work.
yeah. So I basically just did what I could and what I thought was right. But once I heard that feedback, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this sort of work, I want to do it right. And so I launched Black Tech Pipeline so that I could have a job board, but also to have a more like stable recruitment model. So now when I'm recruiting for companies, when they hire a candidate from my recruitment service, I stay on the job with that candidate that hire for their first 90 days. And that's to make sure that they're going through a smooth onboarding process. They're being supported. They're being given the tools and resources that they need to grow and thrive at that company and hopefully in their career. And I'm taking feedback from that hire and relaying it to the employer. And this is like keeping everyone accountable and, just making sure that they can retain the hires that they're getting from us.
I like that. Like, say, if you're keeping the feedback going as you go over those 90 days, then you can see whether they're implementing any changes or taking it on board. Then, too, what happens if you do discover that they're not supportive?
Yeah. So I would give them that feedback, and then I wouldn't work with them again until they can prove, like with data, that they have made improvements.
Good.
For that hire specifically, I let them know, it's up to you whether you want to stay or leave, right? Because I don't want to force anything upon anyone, and I understand, like, at the end of the day, you need to pay your bills and you need a job.
Yeah.
You know, but no, I respect whatever decision they make. But on our end, at least, we cut that company off until
Good. Good. So if people contacted you then and wanted to work for a company that you'd cut off, would you would you just say that you don't work with that company?
Yeah.
And that's enough then, really. They can put two and two together and figure it out from there. Yeah. I like it because obviously it's something you're, especially when it's your business, you want to tread the line, but you also don't want to lose your integrity while you do it too. That's the whole point of the whole project. Nicely done. That's very clean. I love the onboarding handhold. If for nothing else, you're also going to learn things about onboarding that work for diverse candidates, even aside from being Black too, which is interesting. I'm sure you've taken things that you've seen somewhere else and told people, well, I've seen this work elsewhere. Like, it's going to be handy to go.
Even during the interview process, I relay the feedback. Like, if one of my candidates are going through it and they're saying, hey, like, I felt this way during the interview process, or I felt like it could have been better in these specific areas, I'll relay the feedback, and hopefully the company implements those changes.
Cool. And have you seen much change in the representation since you started Black Tech Pipeline? It's there, 4 years now, is it?
It has been 4 years. Representation has definitely gone up, but it's not one of those things where I'm like, I want to applaud it, because there's just still so much work to do. Has it gotten better? Yes, but we have a long way to go still.
I think I find that on the women in tech side that, people are so focused on the numbers that they forget sometimes about the original reason that we've implemented things like ERGs or we're supporting diverse groups. Right. And it just becomes that box ticking exercise. You have to go back and remind them, going, why are we doing this again? And that makes a difference, I think, to how these things are delivered or implemented once they remember at the core that it was because of the people, not because of the statistics.
Yeah.
It's an easy to fall into the trap, I think. I can see why, but there still needs to be the reminders there. Like, what do you think about the things and when you see companies starting to drop like their DEI leaders and ERG programs and stuff like that? I know I have my own thoughts about it, but I'm curious, just as an aside, what your thoughts are on that.
It doesn't surprise me, honestly. For me, because I have just learned so much doing this work, I know that especially like within bigger companies, there's the smaller departments, right? There are people in that company who truly care about like diversity, equity, and inclusion and hiring underrepresented talent and things like that. They do care, but they don't have control of what higher ups decide to do and what they decide to prioritize. And so when they do drop, things that are so important like DEI, I'm like, I knew it was never I knew they never cared for it in that way. And so it just doesn't shock me, but it's still always going to be disappointing.
I think it makes quite a statement for the company. And it's almost like, and this is my opinion on it, I think it's like they've treated it like there's a goal to get to. We got there, we're good now, and now we don't need these resources anymore. But there's always going to be need for the resources because everybody's always going to be different. There's always going to be differences between people, even if we all suddenly did become the same skin color. I don't even know how that would be possible. We're still going to be from different backgrounds, have different history, have different cultures and so on from there. But and I personally think like we all know there's statistics around, how successful companies are that have greater diversity in place.
Yeah.
So it baffles me when companies use phrases like it's a nice to have. So we got rid of that first. It's not a nice to have. It's directly linked to your success.
I know. And I honestly don't even like that whole, hiring more diverse people, brings us more profit and things like that. And I just feel like that shouldn't matter. It's like, it's just the right
Right
thing
thing
to
to
do.
do.
It should just naturally be that way, right? Like you should just naturally have a diverse workforce. Why does there have to be a reason for it? It should, that's literally the world we live in.
Yeah.
So that's also so frustrating. But it's like, that's how you get people to listen, unfortunately, talking about money.
Because most of the people that are listening are not part of the diversity
Right.
side of it. So you have to find another way in, I guess, from there.
Mhm.
And yeah, I agree. It should be something that happens naturally. But I guess, we would say until we get to the point at which we're seeing the percentages we need to see across all those companies, it's not going to happen naturally. But I'm all about the organic approach and something like evolving naturally to being a better solution. And I just, yeah, I could debate that one for ages. But to me, it's like it's just cop on. Like that's what we love to use the phrase here in Ireland. It's just cop on. If you've got a product and you want everybody to buy it, then everybody should be involved in making it. If you've got a
Right.
product and you want only women to buy it, you can still have men involved in making it. Like it's not going to hurt to do that. You definitely need to have women involved in making it.
Yeah.
If they're making something that's just for women or, different cultures and such too. But yeah, I just think it makes people's markets or potential buyers or potential markets smaller by not actually increasing
It
their
does.
teams. Like it's just so
Yeah.
simple. I ramble on. Since you've become both a founder and a CEO, then what are the kind of challenges that you have faced personally, and have you got any wins that you're proud of in particular?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I faced so many different challenges. There are things like there's like burnout and stuff that, I don't know. The way I feel about burnout, and this is just me, this is not advice. This is like how I went about it. Like when I first launched Black Tech Pipeline, it took so much of me, especially like I have a full-time job and I'm trying to launch this. And I'm not just launching a company, I'm already doing the work,
Yeah,
for the purpose of the company,
for
right?
2 years for free.
2 years for free, right? So I'm like burning myself out, and I knew it, but I was like, it's gonna be worth it, Whereas some people would say that's not healthy. It's not healthy, but I was like, I'm going to sacrifice my health a little bit and just do it, and I
Conscious
did.
decision. I can't.
Yeah. So that's number one. I think number two, and mostly what I've learned is like business related. So because we started from a tweet that had gone viral, right? I've been riding that virality like up until this point, right? And I think it's starting to die down. And I'm like, okay, now I have to do, and now I'm learning a whole another side of business, right? Where now I have to do outreach and I really have to like learn how to get customers on my own instead of always having them come to me. Like those are things I'm learning now. But I've also had plenty of wins. Like I got 2 grants on my own. I applied by myself. I didn't receive help. I got 2 grants. I thought that was really cool because it's not
Yeah.
something I had done before. I just kind of went for it. I feel like I've learned a lot in terms of like becoming a leader and being more confident and understanding humans because I'm learning from the community that I mobilized, right? And I'm seeing how humans interact with each other. And I'm seeing what people like, what they don't like, what takes, what doesn't, why people get into certain debates and why certain things happen. I feel like I just saw a different side of humanity from, having a community. So yeah, that's what I can think of right now.
Steep learning curve. Like it's not like you're 85, you're still very young, and that's such a lot to have taken on. But I guess, who am I to judge even that? Like, I'm like, it's a lot to take on, but then if you're enjoying it and you love it, is it?
Yeah.
I think when you're learning things and knowing, like you say, that you've got this end goal and you're going, okay, when I get there, it's all going to be good, and that's motivating you through the difficulties of which there's going to be in the early stages. It's way harder to do that if the end goal is one you don't care about. Like, there's a lot to be said for having that kind of passion. And now all of those things that you've learned are applicable to everywhere else as well.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned the people part of it. I mean, I'd say anyone who does listen to this, who's hearing me always rant on about the human side of, especially the human side of cybersecurity, the human side of leadership, at the core of everything that we do. I think people deliver better service, better products, better leadership if they're always considering the human that they're delivering it to or for.
Mm-hmm.
And that then then you're reminded as well whether you actually care about this goal or this process too, because if you're constantly remembering, oh, we're doing this for the humans for
Right.
whatever purpose, and you suddenly find yourself going, I just don't care anymore. Then you know that you're burned out and you're done. Hopefully nobody gets to that stage. But I think
Yeah.
it's a great driving force when it comes from a passion like that. And you clearly have it. 4 years is not a short amount of time to be driving that. Are you still, is it still just you? Is there other people with you now?
Just me.
Wow,
And
well
I've had
done.
help. I've definitely had help. Like I have hired people before. Now it's just me again, but it's been difficult. I've learned to like also automate a lot of these processes so that it can still be me and I'm okay to do this by myself,
Yeah.
for now. So, yeah.
I like that. That'll be exciting for people as well to get in front of you when you've got such a great story behind it as well. How do you think then that the work that you've done, obviously it's created more visibility for Black technologists. Do you think all that visibility has been positive, or have you seen any negative kickback from it, or as well?
I think it's mainly positive. I mean, there's been instances, and it'll still happen till this day, but I'm not super worried about it. But there are people who have commented that, Black Tech Twitter or Black Tech Pipeline is racist or discriminatory to,
Sorry,
yeah, just white men who have, they'll
you
come
know
into
exactly who it is.
no, they'll come into they'll use the contact form on the website to like threaten me.
Oh,
And I'm just like,
how brave!
whatever. Like, you can be mad. The world still centers you. Don't you worry.
Yeah,
It's
I'll be
ridiculous.
long dead before it's. I hope not, but I think it's the reality is I'll
Yeah,
be long dead before it's all righted itself. Like we find the
exactly.
same. Like I think in every. I remember when I first got involved with women in tech, struggling to have conversations where I struggling to find the argument because I was being shouted down all the time by guys going, "Well, you're only getting the job because you're a woman. They only get the job because they need to fill a quota and all these other things that they're saying." I'm like, you just like you're taking up so much of my energy that I need to be focusing on things that are way more important than what's coming out of your mouth. Like, but yeah, you'll get them everywhere, unfortunately. Till we shut them down at some point, that will happen.
I
Sorry,
know.
I interrupted you.
No, like it's true. That's exactly what I had went through. I've even had people, they credited my work to my fiance. My fiance is also a software engineer. And he has helped me with my business, but we really did it together, but really mostly me. I really did most of the work, but he was there to help he was supportive of me. And
That's
there
what
were
comes
other
with being a
men.
partner as well. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And there were men who they would message him and say, I know this was all you. I know she barely did anything. And he's like, what? Like,
They've
it's
really got
ridiculous.
nothing else to do, have they?
I know. I'm just like, okay.
And out of curiosity, just out of curiosity, is your fiance also black?
He's black. Well, he's Trinidadian and Puerto Rican. So half and half.
I was just curious as to whether they would know what he looks like and say that, or assume that he's a
If
different
you
skin
see
color.
you see his little profile picture on Twitter, the little bubble, yeah. So he does have light skin. So you might look at him and think maybe he's white, if you're looking at him from far, but he's not.
So many offenses were caused in the one go. Like my dog's just come in to join us after because my child can't keep him in the room. So hopefully he won't bark and he'll behave. But there's so many offences even in that one statement that they've reached out to him, because they assume he's done it because he's a man, possibly based on his skin color as well. The assumption is that it couldn't possibly have been you. And there's just so much ignorance out there that often when I hear it, I find myself going, really? Is that not really? Like, did somebody make that up? Because I find it so hard to believe, even knowing what I know now at this stage, people are still so immune to intelligence.
I know.
Sometimes I'm just like, what? And they're
And
usually in very good roles as well. Like they're not, you
yeah.
know,
Oh my gosh, I just saw a video, and I've known this too because I've seen it myself. I just saw a video of Obama talking about this when he was elected president and how he ended up in these rooms with all these world leaders and different governors and things like that. And he was like, these people are not that smart. It was just like a circumstance, and that's why they ended up where they are, but they're not that intelligent. And I've seen that too. I've seen it myself, and I'm like, okay, wow.
I love that when I saw that same video as well. And I remember when I see it, because I used to always use this phrase when I was mentoring people, and they'd be in their first role or they're looking for promotion or something like that. And they're really intimidated by their management or whoever it is that they need to go to. And I used to say they have to poop and eat like the rest of us. Like excuse me, I wouldn't say poop, but the other one just sounds so gross when I say it on this stuff. But like, they have to do all the same bodily functions as the rest of us. You know, they're just as terrified of doing the job. I learned that as well as I started spending more time with people, especially at C-level. I was always given the impression that people that are C-level are the untouchables. They know everything about everything. Nobody should ever speak to the C-levels unless you too are C-level. And then I spoke to them, and the very first one I ever spoke to, I think it happened to be a guy. And he was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, which made me just laugh. And I thought, we're not alone. Everyone's winging it. No one's born a CEO. Like, they all have to figure it out as they go.
I know, right? And they just might be, it's not that they're smarter than you. Maybe they're stronger in one area than you are, more experienced, but that doesn't actually mean they're like more intelligent, more credible than you, you know?
Exactly. And in some cases, it's just been good timing that they're in the right place at the right time and they're the person that got picked. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Plenty of people do. You're a CEO. Like, you deserve to be where you're at. There's plenty of people that do deserve to be in the seats that they're in, for sure. But nobody's an expert at everything just because they've got that title and they're in that role. But at least if they start to think that they are, I think that's when you've got problems. Like, there's always room for people to learn and grow and take more on board.
I really wish people would stop attributing like being a billionaire to being a genius, because
just really lucky
to further destroy the world with that mindset.
Especially the ones that started off as millionaires.
Right.
I'm quite sure that if you or I started off as a millionaire, we could possibly be billionaires by now too, but we didn't have that.
Right.
Well, unless you did and you just didn't mention it, but we didn't have that. I'm sure people would notice. When you are talking to the companies then that are genuinely trying to prioritize the support and the diversity and the equity, what should they focus on, do you think?
Like in terms of their practices?
Yeah, for anyone that's to help people outside of the company know that they are actually going to be supported of them, whether it's that the person is Black or from some other diverse community. And what could companies do to make it clear that they're going to support them? What have you seen them do even in the past?
Yeah. So companies, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. So there's like, people are promoting things like pay equity, or they're talking about how they support everyone from when they first enter the company, how they learn about their goals, and how they are going to help them sort of succeed in those goals, whatever it is, because everyone's different. Mm-hmm. And then not just only in their goals, but within their careers. Like if someone's coming in as an entry level and one day they want to be C-suite, helping them get to that or preparing them for that. So it's like kind of giving everyone the same opportunities, or speaking about how they're supporting them to attain those, so that they can all attain those opportunities. What else? There's the different ERGs, right? Like so that everyone feels welcome and has their own safe space, but also other people are welcome to join and to listen, not so much, take over, but, to listen and learn, because that's what makes it so inclusive. I'm celebrating different holidays. I don't know. There's like occupying space. So there are this is where the merit conversation actually does really well. There's like holding spaces specifically for underrepresented talent. And it's not that you are just taking anyone from an underrepresented group. It's like you are taking those who are most qualified from these groups to put into these specific roles. It's not that you're hiring them because of what they look like or what they believe in. It's that we're already like, it's just white men, right? And we need to hold space for other people who are not like us. Otherwise, it's not going to be diverse. So we're going to hold this space for those who are also qualified, just don't look like us in this role, in this space. And that could be for anything. So that's another thing that they do, which, again, causes a lot of controversy.
Of course. Like, I've heard of companies do things like for every female CV they get in, obviously I know my stats better on the female side, they get maybe 20 male ones. So they make a point then of pushing the female ones through the first round. So that by the time they get to by first round, I mean past recruiters, and then you're getting in front of the hiring managers, so that they make a point of making sure that they've got some, if that's all they can get, but ideally an equal number of candidates, male and female, when they're looking at them. The women could all still get, like, if they're not of the equivalent, the standard that they need to be, then they could lose out at that stage, but at least they want to be able to get in front of them. Because if nothing else, what happens, I think, with that, and the same with physically different people, is that your hiring managers get used to expecting to see different people in front of them. When your hiring managers are doing interviews and they turn around and they go, oh my God, I was speaking to an Asian today. that's not good. That means that they're clearly not seeing enough people that are different. Do you
Right.
know? Or I had a woman. I did 20 interviews and I had a woman in the middle of it. Do you know, whatever it is, it should be the most normal thing in the world that they're seeing all of these different people. And I think, yeah, I think there's enough quality in the candidates out there to be able to put some in front of people and standardize it. It's the same with panels and with public speakers
Yeah.
and with, you know, you need to have that visibility, because if it becomes normal to your eye, then you'll be able to quickly spot that it's not normal when you see four white men on a panel and you go,
Right.
what's wrong with this picture? You know, you should be able to see what's normal and what should be normal and what should not be normal, although not quite there yet. Like, just training the eye as much as anything else.
Yeah. And that's why like companies are, and I say this also just for people listening to know, this is why it's important to do things like look for talent, look to fill opportunities outside of platforms that are just LinkedIn. Look on LinkedIn, but look elsewhere, because there are so many different communities and platforms that do center these underrepresented people. And that's like, for example, with Black Tech Pipeline, our partners, they give us unique links so that they know what talent is coming from our platform. That way, when they're sourcing for their roles or they're ready to, do some interviews, all I do is like check a box for Black
Yeah,
Tech Pipeline and they get filled with all this Black talent, right? And
brilliant.
now it's like, okay, I'm not struggling to like find Black talent on LinkedIn or Indeed. I have this one platform that centers this talent that I can just source through. It's the same thing with all of these other communities and people from different backgrounds.
That's cool. It's so easy. You know, no one's having to go out and walk for miles to find anybody. Like,
It
that's a
removes
very
the
simple
excuse.
solution.
It removes the excuse of the pipeline problem.
Told ya. With regards Black Tech Pipeline, what are what's your next goal first?
I keep it going. I keep going between I want to be the LinkedIn for Black technologists and professionals to I just want to stay really small and, all simple and humble. I don't know. I just want to continue helping my community, providing more resources and opportunities, finding more ways to collaborate with different partners, different organizations. I want to, with Black Tech Pipeline, I want to really help sort of like the recruitment process and the job hunting process, that I just want to make it easier and faster. And I have different ideas for that I want to implement one day. It's not so much like something within the platform, but it's things that I just want
Yeah.
to do. And I don't know if that means I am scaling to become bigger or I'm just doing something a little different.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I just know I'll continue helping my community.
And I think it's okay to not be sure too. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like when I give that answer to people that they're like, she's not focused. Yeah, I'm focused. I'm focused on whatever the next need is. And
Right.
you can't always anticipate what the next need is going to be. And if you're
Right.
not open to it, then you might miss it. So I think, that not sure to me sounds flexible, which means that you're in a better position to move with whatever the market, the industry, the individuals need next. And you've already shown that you've moved to support that need by even creating Black Tech Pipeline to begin with. So I think that's really cool. I have one more question for you then before we go. It's kind of a double whammy, I guess. But who for you then has been your biggest inspiration on that journey? And then if you've got any kind of tidbits or bits of advice you might give to any, I want to say young Black Tech professionals, but knowing the pipeline problem, there's plenty of not necessarily young ones that might be struggling out there to get into the industry as well. So yeah, that's a
Yeah.
double whammy. Biggest inspiration and help for anyone joining the industry.
Yeah. I want to say the biggest inspiration is my mom, just because she has worked in diversity, equity, inclusion her entire career. And she inspired me not to get into this work because of how stressed she came home every single day, how angry she came home. I was like, I do not want to live that life yet. Now here I am. I just fell into it and I just have a new level of like respect for her. But I also I understand. And then I think anyone wanting to get into this industry, please do not let, because these are societal issues too, right? There's systemic issues, where there's a lack of representation. There might be a lack of support and resources for you. That is not always the case for everyone. Everyone's story and journey is different. And I don't want it to deter you from trying to come into this industry, just because we really do. We live in the digital era and you don't want to be left behind. And I think it's an industry where you can break in without a degree, depending on what role you're going for. But, there's more equitable routes to an education for tech, I believe, depending on the sector you're trying to break into. And then you can come in if you just have the skills and you're a good person, good empathetic person. And you can break into tech through different, how do I want to phrase this? You don't necessarily, when you have a technical skill set, you don't necessarily have to work in tech. You can kind of work anywhere.
Yeah.
But if you have a technical skill set, you can kind of go anywhere, because that's the world we live in. So yeah, just find your community. You can find it online, and don't be scared to join. It is still a great, diverse industry that does need you.
And has people like you behind the scenes, if anybody does hit a speed bump along the way. Like, there are so many support groups and networks, and it's so wonderful to see that it's all there. And I have yet to reach out to anybody and have them say, no, I don't want to talk to you, which is always wonderful to see in any industry, but I think it's especially strong in tech. Paris, thank you so much. It's been a real joy talking to you and learning all about your progress. I love that. And yeah, may it go from strength to strength once we see how it's going to evolve then from here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.